Hey, everybody. This week's episode was recorded before the Joe Rogan appearance with Doug Murray and Dave Smith, so keep that in mind as you watch. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. Guys, we are live here at Austin's Creek in the Cave. By the way, I'll be doing my first live podcast episode here at April 29th on Tuesday with Kurt Metzger as my guest. So you get tickets at creekandcave.com. Our very special guest today, Douglas Murray, author, bon vivant. Your new book came out just recently, last week. It's called On Democracies and Death Cults. It's Israel and the Future Civilization. Very intense stuff. So we're going to get to the intense stuff after. Let's get the frivolous, fun stuff first, okay? Because not everything has to be so dark. Do you want the question about you or the question about me first?
Which is worse?
They're both good.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
Okay, so I have two things in my home that I'm confident that you're covetous of. Okay. And you're going to tell me which you're more covetous of, and you have to say your thought processes like you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I know you because you're a book collector, so
yes,
you probably have more than two things I like.
This is way past the book collector.
Oh.
The two things I have that you are covetous of are, one, Lady Thatcher's bookcases that are in my living room that are 3 meters high.
You've got Lady Thatcher's bookcases?
Yes. From her home in, it was in
10 Downing Street?
No, from after when she had that condo in, Belgravia?
She didn't have a condo in Belgravia. She had a house in
house, yes, sorry, yes. It's a townhouse, yes.
And you bought her bookcases?
Yes.
And shipped them to Austin?
And you know what else, by the way? Shipping the bookcases is a lot more expensive than,
of course.
They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that.
No.
And then you're on the hook for it. The other thing I own, and this is, I really hope you know what this is, because if you don't, I'll be very sad. Klaus Nomi's tuxedo.
Klaus
Nomi.
Nomi.
You don't know Klaus Nomi?
Oh, go on.
Wow. Okay. Well, then I guess the Thatcher's the answer. Klaus Nomi was a new wave singer. His tuxedo is very iconic.
He was a new wave singer.
Yes. He combined like new wave and opera. He was German. He was one of the first AIDS casualties.
The countertenor. He sang in falsetto.
So,
right.
Yes, I have his tuxedo.
You have his tuxedo. Do you ever wear it?
No, I can't. It should be in a museum. I'll wear it maybe once on Rogan.
Yes, he used to sing like the Frozen song
from
King Arthur.
So that song that you're talking about, Frozen, he sang that song as he was weeks from death, and he wore this Elizabethan costume with a collar to hide his Kaposi sarcoma, which was on his neck already. So it's a very dark song because singing about his death. And the lyrics are about that, but you wouldn't know it from watching it.
Okay, I'd prefer the Thatcher bookcases.
You do?
Yeah,
all right.
I do.
So
rather than the AIDS covering collar.
No, it's not the Elizabethan one. I had the tuxedo.
Right, okay.
When he was alive. Okay, but Thatcher.
Yeah, I'd take the Thatcher bookcases.
Okay. So
that's a fantastic thing to have.
It is. Okay, Douglas, now let's get to some more serious stuff. Your new book is called On Democracies and Death Cults. You've been very prominent in your advocacy of Israel in defense of its actions since the days of October 7th. The big question, which I have, and I'm sure a lot of people have for you all the time, why should the U.S., Americans, and British people give to what you know what's about Israel at all?
Well, I mean, some people can decide they can't. They don't have to. Sure. There seem to be quite a lot of people who don't care or pretend not to care. And there are some people who love Hamas. I mean, I think it's worth putting out there. One of the things that's been most surprising, perhaps, certainly most shocking to me since the 7th of October 2023 is the support for the death cult of Hamas that has erupted in America. On American streets, on American campuses in particular. It's odd to me for lots of reasons we can go into, but which might be obvious. But for instance, we lived through an era in the last 10 years where everyone said, believe all women.
Sure.
Turns out, not if the right women are Jews in Israel. And all sorts of people online try to pretend that what happened with that didn't happen. We have lived through a period where people say victim blaming is one of the worst things you can do. But it turns out not if the victims were Israeli. You can blame them. On the 8th of October in Times Square, I saw when the massacre was still going on. In the center of New York, a pro-Hamas demonstration of people celebrating the massacre. So some people have decided to side with an organization that is actually genocidal, says it wants to commit genocide, says it wants to wipe all the Jews off the planet, and on October 7th gave that its best shot. Some people want to be on that side. They want to be on the side of the rapists and the murderers. Okay. I think most decent people might see that that's not the best side to be on. And in terms of supporting Israel, for me, it's perfectly obvious for lots of reasons. And I can start with the most basic one. There is no other country in the region, in the Middle East, which most Americans could tolerate living in. And that's just a statement of fact. I've traveled enough in the region. I've seen enough of the alternatives in the region. Israel has its problems, for sure, but it's a recognizable democratic state. It's a recognizable liberal state in the true sense of the term. Basically live your life as you want it, as you see fit. You can be religious, you can be secular, you can be Muslim, you can be Jewish, you can be Christian, you can be an atheist, or totally secular. Every rights thing that we have in America, whether it's women's rights, gay rights, whatever, same thing in Israel. It's the one country in the region that's recognizably similar to us. I think one of the many other reasons, and there are strategic reasons, I could list, but I mean, what's the point? Most people aren't interested in military alliances or military strategy. But let me just say that, I mean, in terms of the connection of this country to its allies, to the countries that are like us, Israel is always there's a reason why people attack it first. There's a reason they attack it first, whether it's Hamas or the Iranian Revolutionary Government in Iran. There's a reason why they attack it first if they're hollering on the streets of an American city. But it's never Israel as the last target of their ire. Take this group in Colombia that's become quite famous, the one that's been doing all the sensible things you would do if you wanted to spend your student years wisely, and chaining themselves to railings to stop a war in the Middle East or whatever they're doing. That group states that its objective is the complete destruction of Western civilization. They don't just say that they want to destroy Israel, although they obviously want to do that. They seek, and say they seek, the complete destruction of Western civilization. And if anyone doubts that whether or not people in America or Britain or elsewhere see themselves as being in any way aligned with Israel, just look at what the people who are most phonetically against Israel are for. I have a quick test on this, which I can try out on you.
Sure.
If you go to an anti-Israel protest in Britain, America, Canada, you will see people flying the Palestinian flag in the belief that they're doing something for the Palestinians,
sure,
by supporting Hamas. You will never see them flying an American flag. You will never see them singing the American national anthem. And it's the same in the UK, same everywhere. They'll fly Hamas flags, Hezbollah flags, a bewildering array of other flags. They'll never fly the flag of the country they're in. On the alternative side, look at any pro-Israel protest in the West, and there have been some in the last 18 months. In London, they finish with the singing of the Israeli national anthem, the Hatikvah, and then they sing God Save the King. In America, a pro-Israel protest will be flying the Israeli flag and the American flag. I was in Canada a little while ago speaking to a group of Jews and Christians who are on the side of Israel. And we finished by singing Hatikvah, the Israeli national anthem, and then O Canada, and I had to pretend I knew the words. And I know that of all of the protests which have gone on, even in Canada, the anti-Israel protests never finished with the singing of O Canada. And there's a reason for this. There's a straightforward reason, which is that most people who hate Israel, really hate it, viscerally hate it, want to destroy it, have it as their first target, but not their last. And you don't even have to look here. Just look at what the Revolutionary Islamic government in Iran, which pays for Hamas along with Qatar, which trains Hamas, which supports Hamas, which hosts them when Qatar is busy. They say very openly what they want to do, just as Hamas do, just as Hezbollah do. They always say the same thing. Israel is the little Satan, and America is the great Satan. And Britain is a weird middle-sized Satan. From my point of view, born in Britain, it's a shame to me that we're not regarded as a larger Satan by the Revolutionary Islamic government. Great Britain
so great, huh?
I'd like to think we were up there with America still, but we're not. This chain of hatred is very, very clear. It's stated. So I think it's odd that in a conflict which seems to me to be very clear, there are all sorts of complexities to it, absolutely. But in a conflict that's very clear, it's obvious to me which side I would be on. And it's not on the side of the death cult of Hamas.
Guys, the American dream is under attack, and hardworking patriots like you are being crushed under mountains of debt. Why? Because creditors love debt. They want you to be stuck in their high interest trap. They want you drowning in student loans, credit card debt, skyrocketing mortgage rates, because when you're broke, you're controllable. So what do? You take control. You fight back. And that starts with PDS Debt. They've helped tens of thousands of people live debt-free. PDS Debt goes beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation, and they craft a personalized plan designed just for you. There's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and start putting money back where it belongs, in your pocket. PDS Debt is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They boast hundreds of 5-star reviews on Google and holds a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Why? Because PDS has helped tens of thousands of people get out of debt. I've been in debt in the past. I absolutely hated it because it's the background music to everything you do. You can't stop thinking about it. Every decision you have to make has to be in reference to this debt. It's crippling. You're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/welcome. That's pdsdebt.com/welcome. pdsdebt.com/welcome. You don't have to live like you're living if you're surrounded by debt. I promise you. Here's something you might not know that is relevant to my interests as a horticulturist. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the US? They've got thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers. They have all the plants your yard needs: fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, whatever plant you want. Fast Growing Trees has you covered. You can find the perfect fit for your climate and space, and Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online, get your plants delivered to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. And it's not just for people with yards. They've got the cool indoor stuff too as well. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy, and you get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. They sent me a cool tree. It came in the mail in perfect health. I put it outside, and it's doing superbly. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. Here's the thing. Listeners to our show, 15% off your first purchase. Use code WELCOME at checkout. That's another 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Use code WELCOME at checkout. fastgrowingtrees.com. Code WELCOME. Now's the perfect time to plant. It really is. Use WELCOME to save today. Offer valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Let's get back to the show. Let me ask a few questions because you have a lot in there. The way I have been perceiving the situation, my expertise is with North Korea. And in the Korean War, you had Kim Il-sung in the north, the great leader, and you had Syngman Rhee in the south. And eventually Mao and Stalin piled in the north, and the US and the UN piled in the south. And it was the Korean people who paid the price. The country was leveled many times over. The scars of the Korean War still remain there. Yeah, and it's just horrible. It seems that the Palestinian people are in a similar position, that you have Hamas, who are being, Iran's puppets in many ways. You have Netanyahu and the Israelis, and they're stuck in the middle, and they're the ones who are being kind of decimated. Is that not accurate?
I don't think it's entirely accurate, no, because the people who say that the Middle East region could be solved if there was another Palestinian state, and there are a lot of people who live under that misapprehension, they've already had a go. In fact, they've had several goes. Hamas, well, Gaza was given to the Palestinians, having previously been owned by Egypt and then briefly by being run by Israel. Gaza was given to the Palestinians to run. It was a Palestinian state from 2005. Every single Jew was removed forcibly by the Israeli Defense Forces. And they had an option to run a state. And they elected, the Palestinians in Gaza elected Hamas, which were a self-described genocidal terrorist group who wanted to annihilate their neighbors. And Hamas had 18 years to govern the Gaza. They used the early period of their governance to murder Fatah opponents, the other Palestinian faction, and they threw them off buildings and shot them and dragged their bodies through the streets of Gaza, tied to ropes on the backs of motorcycles. The Palestinian people paid a heavy price for electing Hamas.
Yeah.
But they chose to elect them. And I wish that there was a massive uprising in Gaza during the last 18 years against that government, that terrorist group, that death cult government. But there wasn't. And there may be many reasons for that. But no, I mean, I'm afraid to say that there are prices to pay for electing a death cult terrorist group to govern you. And just one of them is, by the way, that, I mean, people talk about taxpayer dollars going to foreign wars. American taxpayer dollars went to fund Hamas for 18 years. The Gazan people were given billions of dollars in international aid by America, by the EU and others. And the leaders of Hamas stole a lot of the money, bought themselves very expensive luxury penthouses in Qatar and much more. And they used the money to build an elaborate system of tunnels in which they made sure that they kept their rockets safe in the tunnels. Just 6 months ago, a Hamas leader was asked on Al Arabiya in an Arabic interview in the region. One of the Hamas leaders was asked, if you're complaining about the Israeli bombing in Gaza, but why can't the Palestinians in Gaza shelter in the tunnel system? And the Hamas leader said, but the tunnels aren't for them. They're for our rockets and for our fighters. I'm afraid that's what they chose to do. And in my view, in the whole history of warfare, if a terrorist group like that, and there are many examples, well, there are some examples in history, if a terrorist group with annihilationist aims is elected, and if they consistently start wars against their neighbors seeking to annihilate them, and they keep losing, then you pay a price. And one of the prices that the Gazans may well pay, now that President Trump has floated the ideas, maybe they'll lose the territory. Maybe they will be encouraged to go elsewhere. But that's the consequence of starting wars and losing them.
But let's talk about this one step further. Let's suppose Trump's plan goes into effect and the Gazans are displaced and sent, to Lebanon, Egypt, wherever. Is there any doubt that the Netanyahu is going to put his sights on the West Bank next and try to get rid of the Muslims living there who haven't started a war?
Well, first of all, you say they haven't started. Well, one of the only reasons why the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, has not been more lively, and it's been pretty lively, I've seen it myself in the last 18 months, is that the IDF, in conjunction with the Palestinian Authority that runs effectively a Palestinian state in the West Bank, have tried to make sure that Hamas cells and groups in the West Bank are kept down, arrested, and detained. I mean, that's one reason. I don't believe that there is any desire by the Israelis to rule the Palestinian people in these areas. They don't want to. It's hell. It's just hell. When the Israelis were trying to govern Gaza, it was hell.
Sure.
Constant loss of soldiers, constant terrorist attacks and so on, which is one of the reasons why the Israelis were persuaded in 2005 to leave the territory completely. And even dig up the bodies of dead Israelis and bring them into the main part of Israel. No, I don't think that the aim is land annexation, but I do think that one of the things that happens when you lose wars is, yes, you lose land. Does that include displaced people? Almost certainly. But people are wildly, wildly misinformed if they don't think that country after country, when you lose a war, includes the displacement of many people. People have been displaced across Europe, across everywhere when they lose a war. And I don't know what's going to happen when this war is over. What I do know is, what everyone should know, is that the war could stop tomorrow if Hamas gave back the hostages, including an American hostage who they still hold, Eden Alexander from New Jersey, if they gave them back. The war could have been over if Hamas had not started it.
Sure.
But it could have been over on day 2 if they'd have just given back the hostages. And I mean, to put it in numbers terms, as you know, but some people may not, by a small country the size of Israel, is 9 million people. Compare it to the population of the United States of America. What happened on the 7th in terms of casualties would have been the equivalent of 44,000 Americans being killed in one day in America.
Can I interrupt you?
On the hostages.
No, just one sentence. I have to interrupt you because I saw someone make that point on the internet, and a Jew hater pointed out, look, they're saying Jew lives are worth more than non-Jewish lives.
I know. Yeah, I've seen that. I know.
Because you did per capita.
It's so painful. They don't understand math either.
No, maybe you don't understand Jewish supremacy.
Yeah. There are lots of...
Sorry.
There are so many things in the buffet of human stupidity, and that's a main course.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
But in numbers terms, as you say, extrapolating out, if those people can do it would have been the same as 10,000 Americans being abducted from their homes in America in one day. Nobody can tolerate that. No country can tolerate that. And so, as I say, Hamas could have not started the war, and they could have not indoctrinated a generation into wanting to annihilate their neighbors. They could have used all the money that came their way to build a peaceful, indeed thriving society. They didn't. They could have not raped and butchered on the 7th. They could have not stolen the hostages. And then after they did it, they could have given them back. And to this day, the reason why the war is still going on primarily is because Hamas is still holding Israeli hostages.
Don't you think that Israel's actions since October 7th, even if you think they're the correct ones to do, have made the Gazans themselves more radicalized toward Israel?
I'm not certain you could make them more radicalized.
Okay.
I mean, everyone, I suppose, has seen the footage of the Hamas terrorists driving back into Gaza on the 7th. These incredibly brave men who've raped or cut the tendons of Jewish girls they've managed to find and dragging them into Gaza on trucks, sometimes dragging their dead bodies in on trucks. And everyone's seen the reaction of the crowds in Gaza who welcome these people as if they've done something amazing, as if they've done something heroic. If a group drove here into Austin with raped and brutalized and tortured girls in the back of a pickup truck, I don't think the citizens of Austin would cheer those people as heroes. And in Gaza...
I don't know, public school teachers kind of are valorized in America.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the citizens of Gaza, they celebrated this as well. And you will not find a hostage who's been released in the last 18 months. And by the way, they've only been released because the IDF and the IAF have done what they've done. They haven't been released because of the kindness of Hamas. But you will only hear from the hostages who have come out, including the girls, the unbelievable way they were treated, not just by the Hamas captors, by the Palestinian families they were held hostage by. Some managed, a couple, 2, I think, managed to briefly escape and were immediately returned by citizens in the street. So the idea that, as it were, the Gazans are going to be more radicalized now, I don't think they could be more radical than they were on October the 7th. I don't believe that the solution to end the war is that, we have to sort of react to terrorism by not destroying terrorists. We've heard this many times. I've heard this too many times in my life in different conflicts that, if you respond to the aggression, you will create more aggressors. Right. But that's just not the case in the history of war. It can be the case. It can be the case. But it's not always by any means the case in the history of warfare that if you reply to aggression, or that if somebody is an aggressor towards you, that if you were to reply, you will simply make the problem worse. I think there's relatively few cases where that is the case. The citizens of Gaza are in the situation they're in because of Hamas. Could have all been different. Could have all been different. They were given a state in 2005, and the fruit of the state was October the 7th, 2023. So no, and I also think it's a logical oddity when people say, you can't react to terrorists because otherwise you'll create more terrorists. Like, what are you meant to do? Sit back and wait for it to happen again? Just leave your citizens, your men, women, babies behind terrorist lines because otherwise you'll make them mad? There are so many people who've commented on this war since it began with zero knowledge of it, zero knowledge about warfare, have never been to the region, have never seen a war, have no idea what it involves, and will say things like, I can't bear the amount of casualties. Well, it's not yours to bear, actually, because it's not about you. It's about the people it's about. It's the people who are affected. And yes, I think the whole history of the Palestinian-Israeli conflicts, the Arab-Israeli conflicts, as they used to be called, is a consistent failure by the Arabs, then called Palestinians, to even consider living in peace with their neighbors. They were offered a state so many times. They were offered the opportunity of land so many times, and every single time they responded with terror and rejection. And I believe there's a price to pay for that.
Guys, I have been a sheath underwear model for several years now, and I'm kind of livid that they sent over an ad read and "You're welcome" is spelled wrong, and it says Mike Malice. But even though I'm annoyed at that, I can't be too annoyed because I'm wearing sheath underwear right now. I wear it every day, 24/7, yes, even in the shower, because sheath is the most comfortable underwear you're ever going to wear. What makes sheath special is their dual pouch technology. And the first time you try it, you're going to be like, what is this? And then years later, here I am wearing it all the time because they have one pouch for one part of your male anatomy and another pouch for another part of your male anatomy. It sounds weird, but let me tell you, it's very comfortable. And it's also really kind of fun if you're having a date, God help me if I ever did, job interview, doing this show, you're sitting there talking to somebody the whole time knowing your underwear is grabbing your junk and keeping it snug and secure. It keeps you cool in the summer and keeps you nice and snug in the cold weather. Try it out. I promise you, you're going to like it. All you got to do is go to sheathunderwear.com, use promo code Malice, you get 20% off. You'll be one step closer to being an underwear model like myself. They've got shirts, they've got hoodies, all super comfortable, all super fun. Support the underwear that supports you. That's Sheath Underwear. Sheathunderwear.com, use promo code MALICE for 20% off. And now I'm going to go talk to their manager. This is outrageous. Guys, the weather's heating up. Your nighttime temperature in the bedroom has a huge impact on your sleep quality. So if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA. They use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat, which leads to acne, allergies, stuffy noses, and it is gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. They're very comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. It clogs your pores. It gives you breakouts. It gives you acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or a gift for a loved one, you order today, you get 40% off. And if you use promo code Malice at checkout, you get a free 3-piece towel set and another 20% off. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code malice. Get your free 3-piece towel set. Save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. Let's talk about October 7th, because here's something that doesn't sit well with a lot of other people. Israel is obviously, if someone leaves, I've heard stories and I'm sure they're true. Like if someone leaves a suitcase at a bus stop for like 5 minutes, the bomb squad comes and, takes apart the suitcase and they're on top of things because they know they're under constant threat. How were they able to pull this off for hours on October 7th without any Israeli kind of retaliation? That just seems something's not adding up for a lot of people.
Several things. First, there's several mistakes in that, if I can say so.
Okay, please.
First of all, it wasn't the case that there was no Israeli response. There were units like Duvdevan who were down there very fast and fought and lost men fighting the terrorists from the get-go. However, there were massive military and intelligence failings on the part of the Israelis. And I think a lot of people don't understand what they are. There hasn't yet been a commission of inquiry in Israel. There won't be until the war is over. I think in this book, I've managed to piece together what the main mistakes were from speaking to many people involved, military, political, and elsewhere. The first thing I'd say is there was an element of hubris.
Sure. Okay.
I mentioned it in the book at the outset. There was some Israeli hubris. There was what I call the Fauderization of Israel, where sure you've seen the Netflix series Fauda, special forces unit, sort of, we're so good at the intel, we're so good at the tech, we're so good at the counterinsurgency and so on. And they are good on that, but they weren't as good as they thought. And they were caught by surprise. As it turns out, they were caught by surprise as I think it was Eric Weinstein who made the point a little while ago, like, you should always notice anniversaries when it's jihadist attacks and Islamic extremist attacks. They're very keen on anniversaries. This was the 50th anniversary of the last major surprise attack on Israel.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
The 1973 war, which was also a surprise attack. This was the 50th anniversary of it. Again, that time it was on the Jewish festival of Yom Kippur. This time it was on Simchat Torah. A lot of people are away from the bases with their families. There was also a conception which was wrong, and I'm very critical of the Israelis over. It was called the conception, and the conception was that after all these years around the Gaza and firing missiles from the get-go at Israel from Gaza, Hamas effectively, like many, I don't need to tell you because you know a lot about the history of totalitarianism, the history of a lot of extremist groups, as you know, is that they believe it for a bit,
right?
Then they become corrupt,
right? Yes.
In the end, they don't believe it at all, and like the Soviet communists, yes, by the end of the communist era in Russia, it's like they're just getting drunk and trying to embezzle money.
Right.
You know, it's like they know it doesn't work. The Israelis military and a lot of the people in the political class were of the belief that by this point, Hamas was just happy with being corrupt.
Oh, wow. I see, yeah.
And living in their luxury penthouses, stealing the money, and their sons driving around in Ferraris and so on. And it turned out they wanted to be corrupt and they wanted to kill the Jews. A massive, massive failure of intelligence and understanding. Which not everyone had, but a lot of people had. Another thing is that on the day itself, and I've pieced it together from survivors and others pretty, I think as sort of clearly as you can at this stage, a lot of it was Hamas had been training along the fence area for a long time. There were people like the young women at the Nahal Oz base who said, in the immediate period before the 7th, said to the commanders in Jerusalem, thing, there's stuff going on at the border that looks like they're preparing for an invasion. And it seems that they were told, no, it's nothing unusual. On that, you can hear different opinions because many of the people at the bases who saw this and indeed were attacked said it was unusual. Many other people said, look, they were doing this all the time anyway, so it's extremely hard to tell when that's going to happen. Another thing is, to give credit to Hamas, they were very good at the strategy on the day. They invaded by land, air, and sea. They came in boats onto the coast. They came in by air. They came in on foot, of course. They broke down the fence, and they came through in their thousands. I mean, about 4,000 terrorists spilled through and invaded. And they also, one other thing I think people don't realize is they knew, for reasons which are very unpalatable, but they knew where to attack and when, and they knew how to take out a lot of the comms. They managed to get to one of the comms operating centers very early on. That meant there was a breakdown in communications in the army and the military from very early on in the day. And that is all going to have to be worked out as to just how that was so vulnerable. As for where to attack, a lot of that has to do with a very, very unpleasant fact, which I pieced together, but I saw it with my own eyes, that the people who were there was a movement for many years from inside and outside Israel to encourage more Gazans to be coming into Israel every day to work. You'll notice that the Egyptian government never allowed Gazans to go into Egypt to work and go through their border, but let's put that aside for a moment. The Israelis were allowing thousands of Gazan workers every day to come into Israel. They were earning better money in Israel than they would have done in Hamas around Gaza. And many of the people who worked in communities, helped on farms, and all sorts of other things, many of the Israelis who were disproportionately in the south from real peacenik communities who wanted to live with their Palestinian neighbors and wanted, sort of frankly kumbaya version of it. That turned out the people they were working with, who they wanted to live besides and with, were effectively spies. They took back the intel, and that's why a lot of the Hamas terrorists on the day, for instance, went into communities and knew where the person who was in charge of security lived and would kill him and his family first. And that happened in community after community. There's a town 20 kilometers from the border, which inside Israel, which Hamas got to on the day, where a cell of, I think, 12 terrorists ended up getting in. And I saw the map that one of them had on his body, and it included not only the location of the member of parliament who lived in that town, but where the synagogue was, where the kindergarten was. They knew where to attack. So it had been a lot of intelligence gathering for a long time. But undoubtedly, the Israelis were badly surprised. There's a dispute as to whether or not Hamas knew that the Nova Party was going on. But undoubtedly, once their terrorists drove into these thousands of young people having a rave in the early hours of the morning, they couldn't believe their luck, and they did everything that they would be expected to do.
I have to ask this question as someone who's one of the Alphabet people. What is your opinion of the whole Queers for Palestine movement?
I think that there are insane and suicidal people in any group of people. And, there are some people who want to do suicide by cop.
That's true. Yeah.
There are women who write to convicted murderers in prison asking them to marry them, and there's Queers for Palestine.
But
same type.
You think it's just, where do you think this comes from?
profound mental illness.
Okay.
Of a very deep and probably unchangeable kind. But once you think, and I've seen some amazing videos online, as I'm sure you have, of sort of, so there's a great one I saw yesterday of somebody he was a dude who was wearing a hijab.
No.
Yes, I'm afraid so, Michael. There's always another level to the inferno. I tell you, Dante got it wrong. Always another circle. This guy, he's decided, obviously, he's trans or like non-binary or whatever, and he's decided that he's going to take it to the next level, and he wants to wear a hijab, and he wants to meet a nice Muslim guy, not a Jew. He doesn't want a Jew.
Okay, he wants a guy.
Wants a nice Muslim guy. I mean, he could find plenty of gay Muslims.
Sure.
But I don't think he'll find them in Gaza or the Palestinian Authority, because if you're found to be gay there, they have very special ways to treat you. And none of them are sexually or in any other way attractive, again, unless you're somebody who likes snuff movies and wants to be a participant. And literally, I think some of these people do. They must be. Or they have no... this guy, again, it's a profound mental illness. But people like this guy, they can have no conception. I don't know about you, but I always have because we're both slightly strange. We both... I don't know about you, but I have little subsections of human oddity, which I sort of, you sort of notice. And one of mine is the Westerner who believes that everyone in the rest of the world is just like us and wants what we like.
Oh God! Now you've triggered me.
Yeah.
You triggered me a lot.
You know the type. We're going to be here all night.
I'll give you a very easy example that's not even that fringe.
Go on.
It's this term Asian, where you're going to conflate not only the Korean and the Japanese and the Chinese and the Filipino experience. Now you're going to throw India in the mix.
Yes.
And just because these people are geographically proximate, and just go there and just tell a Japanese person, you're basically the same thing as a Filipino. They will correctly regard you as a lunatic.
Yes. Well, I like yes, that's why in my native UK, when the Pakistani rape gangs are always euphemistically called Asian grooming gangs. First of all, abducting and raping a girl is not grooming.
Wait, can we interrupt this? Because there's something germane about this that I had a big part to play. Because on New Year's Eve of this year, I tweeted out, because you say there's always a layer of the inferno. When I heard the term grooming gangs, which I was aware of for quite some time, I was in the impression that these are Pakistani older men who pick up teenage girls and encourage them to be their girlfriends, right? Because that's what the term implies, grooming.
Right.
Then I read these court cases, and things like an 8-year-old being assaulted, beaten with a bat and then assaulted with it, just tortures and all these things, literal children. It's not even teenagers. And I tweeted it out. And I go, I'm so naive, even in my understanding of evil. I really thought it was as innocent, air quotes, very loosely, as teenage girls. And Elon saw that. And Elon blew it up. And then it became a whole thing again in January of this year.
Yes, it did. I didn't realize you were responsible for that. There you go.
Not for the gangs, for the pointing it out.
No. I was not alleging that you are an Asian groomer.
Yes.
But just not only is it the euphemism of grooming when it's actually rape.
Right.
But also Asian. It's as if if you're in the north of England, you got to watch out for the Japanese guys coming around abducting your children. The whole thing is preposterous on that. But let me give you the one that is sometimes on my mind in this particular substrate of human oddity. Some years ago, I remember there was a couple from America who decided that to give up their jobs, nice young man and woman, and I think it was even reported in the New York Times, but it's true, that they decided to give up their jobs and go motorbiking around the world, basically, in the belief that they were going to discover that around the world, people were like them and they wanted to have a nice time and have a bit of money and, maybe start a family one day and everyone's nice.
Yeah.
And I remember they kept a video diary of it. And then one day, I think in Tajikistan or one of the stans, they were driving along the road and a jeep full of Islamists came out and they raped the woman and killed them both. That's how the story ended.
Yeah. Because
actually, not everybody is like us.
Right.
And I just think that there is a strange, it's a presumption if you wanted to trigger some of these like Queers for Palestine types, you would say they're being Orientalist in their mindset. I mean, they are literally imparting what they think
Right, correct.
about the rest of the world onto the rest of the world whilst knowing nothing of the rest of the world. It's true. A lot of people around the world want what we want and want to live in peace and much more. But some people really don't. And the inability of a certain type of person to comprehend that is something that I'd like to say shocks me, but it certainly continues to surprise me.
Do you know what the sex change capital of the world is?
It's Iran.
Yeah. Because you're not gay if they force you to become a female.
Yes, that's right. I remember there was a conference some years ago of Labour Party activists and others, including the former Labour Party leader, Jeremy Corbyn, at a conference. It was one of those kind of hands-off everything, things, don't have any foreign policy. And there was an Iranian who said, when a protester who was Iranian said, you hang gays in Iran and so on, very unusual. Not many people actually continue to make that point, true as it is. This woman who was representing the Iranian regime said, don't you realize like we're the leading country on transing people. We're the best at transitioning men to women. And of course, that's only because if they catch a gay,
right,
they will offer you the hanging or the chop of another bit of your body. And I say, look, aren't we magnanimous and cool? Again, maybe some of these people who think the way that the sort of Queers for Palestine do are after that, but count me out.
Podcasting isn't just about talking. It's about growing, engaging, and monetizing. And that's where Podcast One Pro comes in. Whether you're an independent creator or a major brand, Podcast One Pro gives you the tools you need to take your podcast to the next level. We're talking about premium hosting, advanced analytics, dynamic ad integration, and expert distribution, all designed to maximize your reach and revenue. Plus, with access to Podcast One's industry-leading network, you'll be connected to top-tier advertisers and a massive audience. It's time to go pro and turn your passion into profit. Visit PodcastOnePro.com to get started today. Podcast One Pro, the power behind the podcast.
Okay, let's talk about this though. Isn't Israel basically another South Africa in the sense that the Palestinians and non-Jews are treated as second-class citizens?
But they're not. I mean, I have plenty of friends in Israel of a bewildering array of backgrounds who are not treated any differently from anyone else and are certainly not treated the way that apartheid South Africa treated the black South Africans and white South Africans. I mean, again, these myths grow up from people who've never been there. Like, there are no lavatories in Israel for, like, Arabs only or, like, Muslims only, and this is Jewish lavatory or whatever. I mean, it's not like this restaurant you're not allowed into. You're only allowed this job. There are Arab, Muslim Israelis at every level of Israeli society. In apartheid South Africa, it's one of the things that's so maddening, for the way in which people can just be lied to and be encouraged to repeat a lie. You know, you'll notice that in apartheid South Africa, there were no black judges.
Sure, of course.
You'll notice there were no black politicians in the parliament. Israel's parliament has Arab parties. Its Supreme Court has Arab Muslim judges. Its army even includes, not enough, sadly, I wish there were more, I think it would be good for Israel if there were more, but includes Arab Muslims. I give in one of the opening chapters of the book an account of a Muslim Israeli doctor who is a volunteer paramedic as well, and in a group called Hatzalah, and he on the morning ended up hearing about the thing, drove into the firefight, is fired at by Hamas. they end up working out that he's a Muslim, so they take him captive as a human shield because they believe that the IAF won't shoot them from a helicopter if they've got an Israeli captive. At no point did Hamas treat him differently because he was Muslim, and in the end, they shot him and left him for dead. Thank God the man survived. He's an amazing man called Tariq. He's an Israeli Arab Muslim doctor. I've spent time in South Africa a little bit in recent years, and it is, among other things, such an insult to the people who suffered under apartheid in South Africa to pretend that the situation of Arabs and Muslims in modern-day Israel is anything like that. And I pity the ANC politicians and others in South Africa who do this trick against Israel. I mean, they're being paid by the Iranian government to do this stuff a lot of the time. But I pity the people who are doing that because South Africa is spending down its moral currency on the world stage by the hour by lying like this.
Can we talk about what's going on in your native UK?
Sure.
Because I think a woman was
Always a cheerful subject,
yes,
Michael.
Yes. A woman was recently arrested, I think, for a Facebook post, something about, or a guy about, I'm so sick of these Palestinian flags, just similar as that. And they took him away. Keir Starmer has been talking about blasphemy laws and not criticizing, Islam at all.
Yeah, there's a new working group on Islamophobia.
Yeah. Can you talk a bit about what the climate is like back overseas? There was a guy who was tackled by the cops where he was just this Israel supporter. It was nothing even mildly defamatory.
The cops in London kept arresting this brilliant, brave young Iranian man for holding up a sign saying Hamas are terrorists.
Oh, that's the one that was, yeah.
Which, by the way, the British government designated Hamas as a terrorist group, like the American government, because it is a terrorist group.
Right.
Yeah, this brave young Iranian man in London would go to the protests and hold up this sign saying something that's true in English law, and the police consistently detained him. Very interesting, by the way. In Britain, there's what they call policing by consent. They're very keen on this idea that, like, the local bobby gets the consent of the community and so on. Funnily enough, that's where the part of the rot is in Britain, because the reason why they go for that guy is because he will cause the breach of the peace. Because the Palestinian protesters screaming their vitriol against Israel and Britain and the West as they march down the street are enraged to see somebody insulting Hamas.
But I don't think it's just them. I was talking to the trigonometry guys. I think a lot of Brits want the cage. The native Brits want it as well.
I dispute that.
Is that true? You don't think a lot of, look at Scotland. Scotland is overwhelmingly still, native Scots, and they're voting in the SNP and those crazy laws.
Yeah, but the SNP, I mean, they're voting them in because of Scottish independence, which I'm not in favour of.
Okay.
But I don't think the Scottish people or the people of Britain have all become cucks of some kind. I mean, I don't think that.
It sure seems that way.
Well, I think you can subdue a people for a long time and insult them and tear away their holy places and piss on their holy places and tell them they don't have any holy places and much more, which is what they've been doing for a generation in the UK. But I don't agree that that means that everyone in the UK is weak and feeble. I don't think that at all.
Are you quoting Thatcher there?
You noticed it.
Yes, I have that as a GIF.
Weak, feeble.
But do you see any path? I mean, it seems like Keir Starmer and his big majority in Parliament is very crafty in the sense of, I'm going to lock this down to make sure this can't get undone.
Well, they did that after the Southport attack.
Right, yeah.
They did that rather expertly, and it was almost textbook barrier, the way in which they just decided to shut it down. I mean, you could try to give them any excuse for it. You could say that, yes, after a young black male of Rwandan origin goes into a Taylor Swift dance party of under 10-year-olds and slashes at them all with a knife and stabs 3 of these girls to death and wounds many others, that a country will be at risk of some kind of retaliation,
Yeah.
for sure, because you have people in an ordinary place like Southport. I'm saying ordinary because it's like, it's not you become sort of used in European capitals to the routine, what I call the naughty truck syndrome, which truck drives into crowd in Christmas market, naughty truck,
Right. Yeah.
and used to that. But Southport is a much less obvious place for such an attack. But the minute it happened, you knew that the government was covering something up, because within 24 hours, the security services and others know what the guy had on his computer. And they'll know that he had Al-Qaeda training manuals and so on. And the government, with the collusion of much of the media, reported, a boy from Wales.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's Ann Coulter's rule, isn't it? That Ann Coulter has the rule that if it doesn't say
the race,
the
more likely it is that it's a minority. Yeah.
Yes. And that rule absolutely pertained on that occasion. Everyone could tell there was something funny going on. We were learning nothing about the identity of the attacker. We were learning nothing really about the background. And then, the first photograph days later that we're allowed to see is of him as a cherubic choir boy. In fact, we were told he's a choir boy. Turns out he wasn't ever.
Okay.
And then the government started. It is a very delicate balance for a government at times like that. I do recognize that, because there are people, and that will do it, like knifing to death girls under the age of 10 at a dance party. That'll set people off for sure.
But it didn't really.
Well, it did. But there were several things that happened. One is that you get some like violent morons who will start attacking the police or anything. And then the government and the police start to think, okay, this is going to get out of hand, and we'll just say everybody who's on the streets is far right, white supremacists.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's a very interesting way to create a boogeyman. Yeah. They actually they did such a good job on this that these so-called anti-fascist groups in the UK, who are desperate to find fascists because otherwise there's no money coming in. There are no fascist groups in the UK to speak of. There are no neo-Nazi groups in the UK to speak of. There were a lot of angry people, some of whom broke the law and many of whom didn't, by just objecting or going onto the street. Some people broke the law, yes. Some people said incendiary things online, yes. They also rounded up people who'd done nothing wrong. Right. They also imprisoned people who'd said nothing that was incitement to violence. But they did such a good job of stopping whatever nascent fury was erupting that a few days later, these anti-fascist groups started saying there are fascists gathering next Saturday. Right. They're gathering all over the country. We must come out and protest them. And lo and behold, much of the media and others pushed this narrative. And then all these people come out in the streets to stop the Nazis, but there are no Nazis. And so the whole thing was just this manufactured, I mean, I'm very, very despairing about the way in which a government can do that. And I think that the manipulation that the British government and authorities went through on that was unbelievable. And it'll get much worse if Keir Starmer and others manage to make it, what was one of the reasons I wrote about the grooming scandal, the rape gang scandal for years. And what was the reason why it didn't come out more? Accusations of Islamophobia.
Sure, of course, right, yeah. Right,
so if the Labour government get their way and they get some kind of new definition of Islamophobia and they say that Islamophobia is to be outlawed, it will mean that once again, as we know from the rape gang scandals, what happens is local police, local care workers, local council workers will be even less likely to tackle that problem because fear of Islamophobia. We know this from the many, many inquiries that have already happened into those scandals. Every single case, the reason why nothing was done or very little was done or what was done far later than it should have been was fear of racism accusations, fear of Islamophobia accusations. So if people want more of that, more of people being able to get away with hideous, hideous crimes, and so on, then I suppose they can. But I don't think I'm up for that, and I don't think most British people are either.
I've got a few more questions. Are you familiar with what happened after the Ariana Grande bombing?
I'm very familiar
when
with
Queen
it.
Elizabeth went to visit the people in the hospital.
Yes.
Have you saw that footage?
Which bit?
So Queen Elizabeth goes to visit the people in the hospital, and there's a girl, like, she's got no legs anymore. This one saw her friend blown to pieces, and she's like, "Oh, did you enjoy the concert?" And it was exactly like that joke about other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the show? It really happened.
Did that happen?
It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Oh,
and they're like,
no.
"Oh, the Queen's at my bedside. Oh, how was the concert?" Well, it had quite the finale.
Oh Lord, poor Queen. That makes so sad. I don't want you to highlight that story because it puts Queen in a bad light, and she never put a foot wrong. But I'm amazed she put a foot wrong there. That's
amazing.
terrible.
Do you also share my deep affection for the mother of the house, Diane Abbott? She's a national treasure. You have to admit it.
You do know the Nick Ferrari interview about maths.
I don't know that one with the police. How much police the cost? Yes, of course. Yes.
It's a
What about
masterpiece.
when she puts on two left shoes to go vote?
Yes. It's that interview about police and how to fund them and trying to do the numbers. It's like the Vermeer of radio interviews.
Yes.
It's a very precious artifact.
So you share my affection for her.
Yes, I mean I met her many times over the years.
Oh, you have?
Oh yeah.
What's she like in person?
We're in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
So I think I say she seems to me to be quite drunk most of the time.
Oh, that would explain it. Did you see that
I've got to be so careful about this.
No, you don't.
I do
Here's
need to
why.
go back home to
Here's
Britain
why.
at some point.
Because in August, I think it was August, early on the summer, right after Officer Harris got designated as the nominee, I was on Rogan. And I said, she's like America's wine mom. There's 3 phases.
Right.
And that stuck with her through the thing.
Yes.
And that makes it's even more sense with Diane.
It's
Because there's footage of her drinking on the subway.
She was,
the
yes,
tube.
and she was very she was regarded as being very smart. She was at Cambridge. She had a pretty good start to her parliamentary career.
You know, there's footage of her on the floor asking Thatcher a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she, gosh, you really are a Thatcher devotee.
I have her
aren't you?
bookcases.
I know, it's amazing. But the problem that Diane Abbott had, I think, was that she believed that because she was black and a woman, that was a force field to any criticism.
Sure.
So and she became with age even more patronizing.
Yeah.
She would say, "What you don't see." It was, and you'd make an argument about anything, and nuclear deterrence, budget, and she'd say, "What you don't understand is," and then she'd say something totally banal. I know, and she was running on autopilot a long time. Yeah.
My buddy Dave Smith has been doing a lot of work talking about this Israel thing. He's Jewish.
Your buddy Dave Smith.
Yeah, we've.
You mean comic? Is that comic Dave Smith?
Comic Dave Smith. Right. Would you ever debate him on this issue if the opportunity came up?
Sure. On Israel or on Diane Abbott?
Diane Abbott, we're all going to see on the same page.
Okay.
But he's been going on a tear recently and debating a lot of people on this issue.
I don't. So he's a friend of yours?
Yes.
And he's a comedian?
Correct. He's still in New York.
Okay. I've never seen his work as a comedian.
Well, he's on Piers a lot also, as you've been on, discussing this issue. Yes.
I mean, I've seen clips of him on Israel. It seems kind of weird to me. I don't...
Because it's a comic?
Intrinsically, I am slightly... suspicious of comic turned serious, turned comic, because I think Russell Brand is a good example of this. You get this combination of, I know exactly what I'm talking about how the world economy should be run, and show me this graph. I don't want to see a
Right,
graph.
right.
I'm an effing comedian.
Right,
you know?
sure.
It's a shapeshifter thing, so I don't find it very trustworthy. But
Please don't call us shapeshifters.
I know I'm kind of saying this. It's like
No, that's a bad word for
Sullivan's-
our people.
But,
I have a signed copy in Margaret Thatcher's bookcases of David Duke's book, Jewish Supremacy. And in it, he says that we change shape to blend in.
Really?
He literally
Oh,
says
well.
that in there. It's
Well,
fascinating, yeah.
Who thought that he'd get a second wind? Who knew David Irving would be back?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, so I don't know. I haven't given it
Okay,
much thought.
that's fair.
But I tend to, I'm pretty promiscuous in my debating habits, and I've debated many bewildering array of people in my time.
But Les, I got to ask, you were clearly intimidated to debate Cenk Uygur, right? Because the guy's
I just didn't know if I could match him in dexterity, sheer verbal firepower, volume, subtlety, passion,
and charm.
I was going to say ignorance, but you took.
The new book
Yeah.
is out now. It is called On Democracies and Death Cults. Douglas, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
I think it's discovering that if you have a break-in at your house and the bookcases have all gone, you know who did it.
You are welcome.
Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Boomerang, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Bueller.
Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock.
I'm a lawyer, like the old TV show.
And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Pulp Fiction.
Correctamundo.
Feel the free Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.